Right, we are back at it again. This is Civic City, a project funded by Draußenstadt of the Berlin Senat. It is a project discussing the topic which has to do with minorities and their participation in the cultural, economic, and civil sectors. We are talking about minority representations, minority participations, and their empowerment and contribution to society at large. We are specific about this. We are specific about Berlin to a certain extent, and we're specific about minorities in Berlin. We have done so far 3 shows. The last episode, our conversation was about the representation of different groups in mainstream culture. We chatted about minority cultures and how they shape opinions of minorities and others. And we looked at the various involvement of voices in the planning process of whatever happens in our city. Our guests were Kabit Ibob Eno and Ali Morali. We were quite grateful to have them in our show. Today we have ourselves esteemed guests with us. Our conversation will be about resource extraction and labor. And the conversation that has to do with today is we look at barriers to entry to economic participation in society and labor processes. We will flesh it out and explain it in short period of time. We also talk about barriers to professional production in cultural industries, seeing that a lot of our groups who have set up this civic city are all artists themselves. And we will look at the stereotypical representation of black people and the extractive migration that brings them to this part of the world, that has made them for perennially either non-existent or minorities with no care. My guests are Youness Atbane, a Moroccan artist, an installation artist and videographer, who has had various projects in Venice, as I understand it, Biennale, and Rome. And we are going to talk about what that means to be in these labor conversations we have. Next to me here is
Elahe Kohestani.
I wanted to say it right because I couldn't say it for the past 3 or 4 times. Elahe Kohestani is a legal researcher whose particular research projects is in international law, migration law, and transnational law. Transnational law. And I could do better, obviously. And our conversation will go on in this topics that we have discussed. Youness Atbane just arrived from Morocco in the past 24 hours. As you have no doubt heard, there has been a massive earthquake that has happened in this country. And before we start this, we would like him to explain, if he's okay with it, to us what has happened in Morocco and perhaps give us his first-hand account. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. Yes, actually I was in the airport when the earthquake happened. First, thank you for inviting me in this talk. Yeah, I'm a little bit disturbed and a little bit in the emotion of what's happened. I was in the airport when the earthquake happened, and when we knew that the center of the earthquake was the Atlas Mountain. We knew that it's a national catastrophe. In the Atlas Mountain there is a lot of small village with like very kind of old construction. Unfortunately, for now, more than 2,000 persons died, and it seemed that it's gonna not stop there. It was very difficult for me to arrive here, but my struggle was nothing compared to what families and people are living in this moment. It was a completely chaotic situation and panic. For now, the Moroccan society is doing well. A lot of organizations are trying to save the situation and help people. So getting out of the emotion and thinking in a pragmatic way, I think in case anyone can do anything for this situation, there is the Dutch Rode Kreuz who is like proposing some help. And I wish that this help can arrive as soon as possible to the families. And maybe I'm supposed to perform tonight, but after this very 48-hour struggle and joining Berlin, I will just stay in my talk, and yeah, it's a lot of emotion for now.
I have one. Is there any aid organizations that you would say people should send their money to?
Yeah, there is many in GoFund and many other online support and funding are rising. A lot of things are happening. I mean, from the German side, it's for now the one I know. It's the Dutch Rotkreuz who are offering help. But there is also a lot of international fundings campaign to support. People are, unfortunately, there is village who totally disappear with their people and building, and people don't have where to sleep, nothing to eat. So yeah, I think any help, any very fast help will be great to have as soon as possible in this very national catastrophe.
Okay, our thoughts are with the Moroccan people, and we hope that they come out of this tragedy as fast and recover quickly as fast as possible. Let's go to the main tip of the conversation. As we said, it's the main topic of the conversation for today is barriers to entry. Entry in terms of labor force, entry in terms of educational opportunities, entry into the various things. I will read a starter of a conversation that I wrote so that we can start our conversation. And the question goes, why is it that people with higher education and many certificates to show for it from the global south, come to Germany and this country, in this part of the world, and end up doing nothing more than menial jobs, even though we hear desperately the news that Germany requires, or Germany has an insatiable need for skilled manpower. And why is it that when there is this conversation and there are this many qualified people to come to it, there are barriers that we cannot fix or sort out? Is it legal? Is it cultural? Is it deliberate? Are there gatekeepers? I keep saying gatekeepers in this project. I apologize for those who think it's conspiratorial. Is there such a thing as barriers? Why is there such a thing? Eli?
Why there is barriers, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like, first of all, like, the whole policy about, like, the migrants that they come here to work and not to study but to work, they have the problem that is it okay?
No, just
No.
a little bit of sorting out to do, but it's all right. We can go on.
Yeah? I can talk without this.
We can
Yeah?
also use this. It's all
Okay.
right. I don't think it's the mic, it's the box.
Yeah, anyway, so the problem is, like, they have studied, for example, in their host, or they, like, the first country that they were in, or they have been skilled there for whatever knowledge that they got, that wouldn't be recognized in Germany.
Yeah.
And by Germany, I would say that probably EU as this castle of EU or European Union countries, that the territory matters, which means that that knowledge that people they have gained in those countries, like third countries, let's say,
Sure.
it's not acknowledged and it's not recognized. And then, of course, they have to do a job to get the Aufenthaltstitel,
Yeah.
the visa basically to stay. And that's the dilemma, basically.
Yeah. But is it, the way I would put it is, global education being what it is, we have had a lot of convergence in terms of skills. That very good example is IT professionals from the world over can come to Germany and already start work as an IT professional, because much of it is sorted out across how do you say, cross platforms. And therefore, we see more and more examples of, for example, people in terms of IT sectors where people join and work in these systems. But I hear examples of, like an example I was given was a Syrian doctor who does now custodial services. He is a medical doctor by virtue of a great many years of education. He has been responsible for a certain period of life. but this person can do nothing but this. And there are no ways of, okay, let's look at this person's education and estimate how much ladders he can climb to get those things he has. But ever since the influx of migration of Syrians, they have opened this door for Syrian doctors, some of them, to join this. So what gives then? Why such a change in venue?
Yeah, I think this, about the Syrian doctors, it was exactly about the first pandemic of Corona, that then Germany realized, oh, we need so many doctors that it's not going to be available for us. So then it was like about a big amount of Syrian doctors. They were living in Germany, but they couldn't practice the knowledge that they had. And it was the need for the German system to basically get these people to come and basically start working, because it was a national crisis. That's the thing. That's a thing about the national benefits or national interest, but not the people that live here, which they are not German citizens. And this goes more than like the freedom to have an occupation or freedom to movement. So it's go to definitely like political participation in the society as well.
I will say also like the linguistics, the Dutch Sprache or like levels, it's also something matter. Depend the sector for sure. If it's something engineer, if it's AT, if it's medical, if it's so in certain sector it's really difficult. I'm kind of like experiencing that in culture, and they can call it like kind of linguistic discrimination. Even if you reach a certain level, if you get your CI answer, but there is certain sectors where they need, beside your high qualification, a high level of German for sure, which is something like as a arriver to the city, we are very aware of it, and I think it's someone coming with high qualification can easily drop the idea of working in his sector by first, you have all the bureaucracy with the visa, with the stay, with finding an apartment, and so on and so on. So he's in the emergency of like, okay, I have to get my situation administratively clear, so I have not just to think about what is my desired job or what is my qualification, and I'm just like people, I know many people that they are in this situation, even if like they come with this idea of Germany is a space where they need a lot of high qualified people, but then directly the reality is like there's a lot of competition in this sector. There is like, and I think people with all this administrative situation, they easily drop off the desire, and then they hope that later they're gonna find what they need. But at the same time, when you stop your practice for like 6 months, 1 year, then the sector is not anymore interested on you. So it's a kind of looping situation where I will not call that the system itself is discriminating people, but the condition push people to be somehow self-discrimination also.
But the question, because the reason I ask is this. I had a Kenyan friend whose entire art form or practice was looking at the Kibera ghetto of Kenya in Nairobi, okay? That art gave him prominence, so he came to this part of the world. Now, this person is here with his art that he has produced and reproduced from that part of the world, and he is asked for qualifications as to what to do here. This is where the thing is. Entry to barrier is, this person is here to represent to you a different perspective. As much as I'm concerned, that's what art is. So how do you say you need this visa, these qualifications, this criteria, for a person who in another world has done his utmost best to research and work in an art of different and unrelated form?
It's really difficult question, I would say. I mean, it's the promise. It's the idea of the promise that Berlin is like offering to people, and sometimes it's from an old era, you know. Like many people, many artists, they come to Berlin with this idea that It's like the German city for arts, the city, it's almost like we call Berlin, like itself, like the country of art. So a lot of people are coming here with the idea they're gonna find easily opportunity and so on, and their vision is gonna be part of the field, and it can happen, I would say, but it will be just for a short time. For this example that you give, this artist from Nairobi, he's coming. I mean, we are interested in this opinion, but it will be just for a short time. And then the reality of the situation is taken on the person, and the truthness is you have to survive, you have to eat, you have to live, and your vision about what you did in Nairobi, it will not save you in this situation. And I think it's this history of Berlin to the art field. I think it's not anymore there, specifically after the coronavirus, where a lot of underground space they shut down. Also a lot of people left, and we are still like trying to and also the cultural policy of the city also, like we try to keep this image of Berlin as a cosmopolitan city in Germany, receiving all the opinions and so on and so on. And the reality is it's not anymore there.
It's no longer there.
It's no longer there. Maybe it's a dreamy situation for mainly American artists who, like, they finish the school in United States, they come to Germany, they think socialism is a bad thing, and then they realize, oh, it has something great. And they are in kind of this satisfaction because they still have $40,000 to pay from their own school in the US. But the fact that there is many people, few opportunities, for sure creates this disappointment about qualifications and what we want to do and what the reality of the street is here in Berlin.
So does this city then represent only those who are, as you said, there is a pre and post-pandemic situation. What made the pre-pandemic time, as you described it, is underground spaces go away? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, Berlin was, I mean, I will talk from my experience. It's really, I made my master in France, in Montpellier. And my teacher, most of my teachers, they were living in Berlin, and they invited me to be part of their project as an associated artist in 2008. That's how I discovered the city, and that's how at that moment really like the city brought answer to me in artistic way, not just. And I knew that, Berlin is a place to learn, to get, to progress, I would say. While at that moment in France, I was kind of like stagnation because of the system. The fact that it was a cheap city first, a capital in Europe, but it's still like kind of affordable, not very expensive rent spaces, art spaces were really like easy to get access to. For example, you can organize your own event in 2 weeks, which is impossible to do in France at that moment. You have to wait 6 months until there is opportunity. And that was really, really interesting. The fact that the community was like very big and everyone want to show his work. He have kind of this feedfulness of sharing his idea, his vision to the world. And that's create this interesting dynamic. Even not everybody was working in the art. Everybody was like trying to find a half job in a bar and something. But there was this artistic motivation and artistic dynamic, which was very, very kind of self-organized, I would say. And that was very interesting because the fact the city was not holding on, because there was a lot of underground spaces that they were proposing something different from the institution, and then the institution followed as well. And at that time it was all these conditions combine something unique that didn't happen nowhere. Probably a little bit, Brussels was kind of a little bit similar because of the European presence there. But then the pandemic happened, and the inflation, the rising of prices, a lot of people left as well. So, and I will say also the genre of arts that's now it's connected to Berlin, Berlin art scene, or like Berlin style. Yeah. That's also somehow I will see it's something like start to create a certain discrimination for a certain artist that they could not fit inside. Yeah. And the city also. The city were like try to keep the artists in the city, like an artist from Berlin touring with his performance, for example. It's something not very common in the mind of the artists. The artists really like they are in this competition, so mainly they show their work in Berlin and Potsdam, and then they start a new work. Yeah. So it's also the funding system who is like pushing people to fund partner locally in Berlin and making, so when you get the funding, you just like, you don't think about the idea of touring, it's outside of Berlin. Even in Germany, it's not so common, I would say, in the mind. Yeah. It's not possible, it's possible, but just in the mind of artists, I'm talking about dance, for example, choreography, it's like that. It's like I'm showing my work to the other artists, to the community, and like staying in this loop, and then people are tired by the end of.
Yeah, but if you say for a very like educated person as you are, it's very difficult. To the average, let's say minority who's just been here, how hard is it now then to find a spot, a place, a funding, whatever is required?
Yeah, I think the success
has it gotten incredibly worse then?
Yeah, the success of Berlin make it itself worse situation for artists. I remember getting like squats to rehearse for my project I could get it for free, you know. Yeah. Now underground spaces, even like independent spaces, they ask you if you're gonna film or you're gonna rehearse. If it's filming, it's 50 euro per hour. Yeah. If it's for rehearsing, it's 12 euro per hour. So the whole economy, I think the success of Berlin itself
has been commodified.
Has been, create rules, create certain, condition on and also the fact that many spaces didn't get funding, so they had to thought of new strategies of surviving as well. Yeah. So that's, the pandemic, the success of Berlin artistically also, the Berlin style as well, and also that the rise of other spaces that start to be much more interesting for artists, so create this somehow complex situation.
Yeah. LA, sorry that this went a bit low. How would you look at it as a person who just came to Berlin from another place to either join the workforce with the qualification you had before, or for a person who had trouble joining the qualification? How would you describe the situation? You mean like from your practice of international migrants and migration?
Yeah, you mean as a personal experience? Yeah. Well, I think because I studied law in Iran, well, that's another story, definitely, because it's a lot based on Islamic law and Quran and also like French law. Yeah. So that's different, I think. Also, the medicine is the same, but for my case, actually, definitely that couldn't fit in the educational system in Europe, which was first Sweden and then Austria and then now here in Berlin. So then I had to definitely go for another master, which was international law and social work. So I had to change the subject to basically make myself to fit in another field somehow. And yeah, that was like that. I mean, if we are just talking about the personal experience.
Yeah. But then was it, the way I would say is, from Islamic law to whatever Europe has to provide, and then you qualify to Yeah, well. Um, shall we cut the feed and then sort our audio issues out? It seems to me that we have a long-standing issue of. But are we being listened to? It's proper? There is no problem with the audio? But audio from Eli does not.
Now.
Finally.
Yeah,
hallelujah. Okay. The question that I would have is, so you've gone through this like as a journeyman or a journeywoman. You've gone through Islamic law only to join Austria and then learn something else. That informs your understanding so far, right?
Yeah.
So when you are in Berlin, as Youness is and as I am, do you find others having incredible difficulty through the way you've gone through in trying to join a workforce, if there is any workforce?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, again, back to what I said, I think it's like the knowledge that you have gained in your country, it doesn't count. This can be, did I understood that?
Yeah, that's the point that we also have to, why does it not count would be the question.
Yeah, shall I elaborate on that? Anyway, so yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, like, when, as a migrant, you come to the country that it's based in EU, which can be anywhere, you kind of like realize that whatever you have done in your country, educational, skill-wise, life experiences, it doesn't count. And that's the big ignorance of the EU institution, let's say, that everything is based on a Western knowledge. How much knowledge we have from Global South, let's say. What's the attitude or like perspective about human rights, about art, about environmental issues? There are those knowledge there, but they will not be acknowledged as a knowledge. It's just something like, yeah, alternative. It's just, we work on that later. Then this causes definitely difficulties for people like migrants like us, I mean like me. But then I think also back to what you said about the bureaucracy and administrative stuff. I would just like want to add something about that. That's the system problem. Because bureaucracy is basically a big racist ignorance to me, honestly. And then, for example, let's just imagine we have a refugee here waiting for 2 years to get Aufenthaltstitel. And then, these 2 years, what this person is doing. He cannot go to Deutschkurs, he cannot work, he cannot integrate, so he gets sick and sick and sick. Which is very absurd to me because the system is basically making much more problems for itself than because this person needs more resources, for example. Yeah, that's it, I think.
As in it makes them sick and then calls them sick afterwards and excludes them from the labor force.
Yeah, I mean, like, if the system really wants, like the whole country, if wants to use their knowledge and resources of these people that they're new, which they have a lot of resources, those resources cannot be used. But at the same time, the whole government needs to put more effort to make these people to be integrated. But how you want to make people integrated? The access should be possible. And then exactly that's where it comes with the administration problems. Yeah.
So the bureaucracy is deliberate in what it does.
I would think
so.
It's
grinding you down, deliberate in making sure that you have no place. What is the hope that at the end you just go home after going through what you've gone through to come here, or? So because I look at a lot of brothers from Africa who had to go through a desert, then the Mediterranean. They had to go through hell to come here, and then they've been made to be wait one way or another for anything to happen, no less than 3 to 5 years. What is expected of these people? To just, as we just described, for them to just stay here and be incredibly sick, as you called it, and then once they get the papers, they treat another 5 years treating their sickness. So it's a deliberate, informed political system that does this.
It's not political system, I would say, is racism, obviously. And I mean, like, we can, like, I don't know, shall I go far with that? Okay. I mean, like, it's everything, for me, it's in whole EU again. It's not about Germany. It's based on the nation state, and it's about And what is nation state? Nation state is basically the structure of a theories that those theories are exclusive. So I'm not saying the policies are exclusive, but I'm saying the theories behind these policies are exclusive, which means that these theories were made by elite, let's say, we know who are the elites, white, heteronormative men sitting and writing stuff, and then if you don't fit in that structure, you're out of it. I'm just gonna go with an example like Frantz Fanon always says, like the zone of being and the zone of non-being. In the zone of non-being, the category of humans is completely differently defined. So when we have categories about humans, like, you should take this time, sit at home 2 years, you don't know what's gonna happen to your life, and you get psychologically ill, which you have been into so much trauma, and you cannot practice any human rights right now, just deal with that. So this is the big ignorance that I would say it's not, I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but shows it's kind of like can be changed, but let's see.
I share this opinion. I don't know how I can really, I had two experiences in the EU. I had the French experience, which they had lots of colonial background. And I will see the discrimination was kind of more brutal and clear in the French system, but you can defend yourself on it. In the German system, the fact that there is nothing like that, like colonial heritage, as that clear as it was with Britain and French, I feel it's softer, but multiplied in 100. You experience it much more longer than, for example, in the French system, which is gonna be the moment when you're gonna face the state. Here, even if you get better situation, you get your permits, you get, it's based in are you able to give us something or not, or what is the benefit from you finally, and that's I would say it's typically here, and this is like what's also the psychology is not just about not having right, but it's even after saving the situation. It's still like the bureaucracy itself, I think it's so robotic, it's so automatic, that it's like create this psychological effect, even if it's in your favor sometime, or even if it's, I would say it like it's softer but multiplied, while in the other, it's like the joke of the 2 bags of banana, one with one big banana and the other with many small bananas. You know, that's it. I feel it like here it's, I experience it even if you go to the supermarket, if you with many people, not just me, like in my exchange, and that's quite really like psychologically it's very harder. The fact to see the communities completely dissociated from the German society, it's something also like quite shocking, I would say. So the system itself, I think is so, I don't know if really people thought of that to make the system like that, but it's so, sometimes I feel like it's not that people want to be discriminative or want to be racist, or it's just the system itself creates situation where these feelings are very strong and very present in, and I'm really like I'm very shocked about the communitariety. We can say this word, communitarities, like the many communities that they are completely community of community, completely. You just go to, you live in Kreuzberg or Neukölln, which is like kind of like very cosmopolitan, but at the same time very many community, and then you go to Schöneberg or Friedenau, and it's completely new energy with lots of more separations. So that's something like I would say, kind of create these feelings on minorities to be discriminated.
Which brings me to a very nice question, right? there is a lot of you, like Elahi, like a lot of us who have lived in this country for so long, people who have been living here since before I was born, since before you were born, people who, as you said, worked and contributed to this country, had its taxes, its passports, but never joined it in any form whatsoever. And any political participation to this system is such a black box that you are forever doomed or forever consigned to a group that looks like you or the group that identifies or relates to you. And therefore, whenever the conversation of integration comes, no one ever asks to what you integrate to. Is it to the society? Is it to the economical architecture? Is it to the way it's built in terms of what beliefs it has? So there is this black box that minorities find in trying to join it but failing to do so. Why is that?
I think like when we are talking about integration, it's just a very big umbrella term, of course. Like, I mean, like, as we said, integration exactly in what? But then as a whole, like integration in economic field, in educational, in political, in cultural. And I think as a whole, when we are having like an average access of migrants to these basically capitals, can be economic capital or culture or whatever, then we can call it the integration has been happened. I think I'm just gonna go and like focus a bit like about political participation, which is my favorite topic. So as you said, like for example, the first wave of like migration has started in decades 20 and 30s in Germany when the skilled workers or seasonal workers, they started to come to Germany to work because it's still like Germany was suffering like now again from not having enough skilled workers. And then these people, they stayed here, which mainly they were from like Western Balkan and also like Turkey. And they stayed here for more than 30 years or 40 years. They had grandchildren here, but they cannot vote in this country. So they don't feel that they have a representative, not even in the kommunale Wahl, like not even in the district assemblies. What's that? Like how this can be? That, for example, again, another legal dilemma is that Germany doesn't accept the dual citizenship, which means if you're from Turkey, and if you want to get the German citizenship, you have to give up the Turkish nationality. Yes. And then if it's like...
Any kind of nationality.
In some cases, it's not like that, because in some cases, the country says, like in the Verfassung, in the constitution law, that you cannot give up your identity or nationality. In that case, Germany is like, oh, okay, we compromise, it's fine, you come in. But in so many, like for example, Turkish nationalities, is not possible. And then these people, they wouldn't like to do that because they still want to have the right to vote in Turkey, or not even vote. They want, for example, to gain inheritance from the parents. So they still have something, they have family roots there, and they don't want to lose that by giving up this piece of paper, basically. So then they are still like 30 years in this dilemma that they cannot be represented and not being heard and completely marginalized. And they cannot even decide for like, it was very funny, like 26, like the last basically Bundestag election. It was very unique one because basically 4 elections was happening. In none of them could a migrant outside EU could vote. And basically just like EU citizens can vote for the local like district assemblies. They can vote for that, but not for anything else.
So when you say EU citizens?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious the answer because like it's EU, right? So we have like the castle of EU that we discrimination again by race, discrimination by territory, discrimination. So I'm coming from Iran, I cannot vote, for example, and I'm completely feeling I cannot integrate in a country that I cannot be heard politically, which is affecting my everyday life maybe. The situation of Wohnung, the situation of flats, the energy, gas, water, whatever is happening in my Bezirk, I have no say and I have to deal with it. So this is, again, back to the same argument that the EU castle, how is discriminating the people outside it? Yeah.
But they're just setting up the new law.
Yes, that's gonna come, I think, in March 2024. They approved about the, that's another thing. Like, they eased the situation of getting the German citizenship through naturalization. Like, for example, me staying in Germany after 8 years, which I can apply for German citizenship, right? So they reduced that 8 years to 5 years. But then another requirements that I have ticked the box. For example, I have to be completely economically independent, no criminal records, having B2 in German. So there are other requirements that are still there. Okay, cool, I'm gonna do that maybe. I'm gonna like tick those boxes. But this is the dilemma, that we don't want to have citizenship to have the human right to vote. It cannot be that a human right can be attached to something, to a paper, and then based on that, I will be allowed, basically. If we are talking about right, means it's independent from anything, especially it is a human right. So that's actually a very good, sorry, I'm just talking, just like interrupt me whenever you want, but like, that's also a very good question. Nowadays, like so many initiatives about like Wahlrecht für alle, or right to vote in Germany, they should stop then working further, because the access to citizenship is a bit easier from 8 years to 5 years. No, that's not the question, I think.
The question is legal representation. Let me ask this question to Youness. And if, as you said, if you are to get the paper, as she said, the commendations or requirements are that you have independent income, but can a starving artist who's trying to make ends meet qualify for such things to make it to a German passport?
My God, we are not very, I mean, even the German artist is not relevant for the system. He cannot get even a bank loan or anything, so. Yeah, for sure, it's associating human right to the idea of citizenship. It's because actually the state is kind of like very busy with human state when it's come to another country treating bad their citizen, or like, you know, Germany can make comment, or can, I don't know, the autumn can even send military for that. But then locally, it's paradoxal. Then it has to go through the canals of bureaucracy, and also like the fact, even if you said, even like you have to live there 5 years and go through this idea of having the beads by and then getting your minimum 22,000 euro per year. So making this effort while you are participating in the economy and in the everyday life, yeah, create a certain feeling of injustice for sure. But the world is very political. I don't know, I can recommend certain tricks, like applying for citizenship just before election. Yeah. That's a great time to get the German citizenship, for example, because they are very quick. You can get it in 3 months instead of waiting one year, because they know that you are politically engaged and they want your voice at that moment. Yeah, so for artists, it's really like it's much more complicated, because we still being considered as a people that doesn't create profit and wealth in the society, specifically when we are very many of us in a small space like Berlin. Yeah, so the situation, it's a permanent discussion. I think it's not just for today or tomorrow, but it's also like there is the KSK who can really like take care of this situation, but in many cases, in many countries, not just Germany, it's still like being kind of like a little bit marginalized community, and only like the one that go to the second market are really like the one that heard their voice are very present. So I also like, I'm very careful with the idea of being an artist as a profession. It's for sure it's important, but for my experience in the French system, which is like much more better system for artists with intermittence, you have many intermittence. It's a system allowing for artists to get salary every month when they cannot work.
Like a basic income scheme, or
not basic income, but you pay it when you work. But actually, when you cannot work for 6 months, you have a salary. Depend how much you earn. You have to make 500 euro per year, and then you can get it. But also, this creates a lot of corruption. I would say. I know there are many artists in depression. They don't work. They are just buying hours from other friends so they can keep this system. So I'm kind of like critique about the vision to the artist, but at the same time, I'm busy with the situation of artists, which is very very difficult as well. I think it will be a permanent discussion. I'm also like still working in Morocco. And there it's much more difficult, I would say. But yeah, I think it's our idealization, ideal that creates new discussion, to create new laws, new opportunities, and so on. So yeah, from my experiences, these 3 countries, it's really different, but I feel like it's in the same level. It's still in the same level. What is the situation of artists? How artists can survive? And art itself, I would say there is a lot of, it has a big space of therapy. So inside, so many.
I only ask this question because we were told just what about when the pandemic started. The politicians came out saying that we don't consider art and artists as part-time workers, rather something that is important in society, as good or as important as a plumber or a doctor or a scientist. The reason I ask such questions is, yes, but then these are the fools who always keep starving and live on very little to produce a lot of what society consumes.
Exactly.
And yet you suffer not just especially when you're a minority, especially when your skin is black or when your name is Ali or Muhammad, you get shafted. And so the question then becomes, what is the way? How do you improve this situation for others? I'm not saying thrive, but to do their part to contribute to the site culture or the cultural landscape.
Wow, that's where the problem is for me now, I would say. When you come from a minority and you try to find a space, I would say there is a certain curatorial direction that you can fit on. Like it can be like talking about your identity, like for example, someone coming from from Africa, he passed to the Sahara, and the water. What we expect from him is to talk about how bad the situation in his country and the journey that he made. Or someone from Syria, there is always like this expectations that okay, we're gonna give funding, but you have to talk about this certain. That's where create a certain also stigmatization and like monotone image. Okay, today there is a woman from Iran, so okay, we're gonna give funding to this theater maker or filmmaker to talk about the situation of women and like to confirm a certain idea that's I would say like coming from a kind of Eurocentric vision to the world, I would say. And artists, sometimes they have no choice, they want to keep working, they want to produce their work, so they have to answer to this certain curatorial direction. And at that moment, it creates a lot of confusion. I remember when there was many Syrian refugees, they came here, they was here in the Biennale of Berlin. Quite shocking works from Syrian artists that we realized that they were not even artists in their country, and they were just like looking for a way to get out of the situation, and it was just confirming what is the idea? Okay, it's people violent and they have trouble with religion and then so on. You know, like these cliche ideas. Yeah. So how to fight that? I think in Berlin the debate is much more interesting, I would say. The quality of the debate, considering this idea, but yeah, it's still there, I would say. It's still very present in many institutions in Europe, not just in Berlin.
Yeah.
This expectation, and this is the frame where these people can talk about, but also that you have sometimes very smart artists that they come with answer to this question. I just read about a very interesting Syrian project talking about Nazis refugees in Syria and making kind of like comparison about the actual situation with the Syrian refugees and the Nazis refugees
the Nazi escape to Syria.
Escape to Syria. It was quite very interesting. So I think it's artists who have to take this discussion through art itself, and not just being in talks like here, or that's what will change the situation, I would say, from specifically here in Germany. I would say, like, yeah, there is a feeling of, if we give the example of Ai Weiwei, who came to Germany and he just left very, very quickly because he realized that
it could also, for him, it's be careful of your expectations, because yes, you lived in an oppressive country, and that oppressive country stopped you from doing art. You were promised a different world, but you came to it without naming your price, and then you got shocked to find the bureaucracy of it would allow you to do so much more. Art is also,
it's a geopolitical
not
tool.
censored, but you know, they will say the audience would like this to happen, which brings the question: do we have gatekeepers in these situations? I keep coming back to these gatekeeper issues. For example, on what we're talking about, who, if you were to look at it, is the gatekeeper in this conversation? The bureaucracy, as you described, is what makes life difficult. Is there somebody deliberately pushing this bureaucracy to be impossible? Because you lawyers, or how do I say this? Legislative bodies come up with legislation. And I've worked with refugees. I myself am one to a certain extent. And what we discovered is, oh, now you can come to this country, and until your thing is sorted, you can now do Ausbildung. Okay? And so, okay, the gatekeepers decided to relent and therefore let this happen. Which brings the question, is there room for a definitive change as to how we do things in how it's happening as we speak? In other words, can there be a radical change as to how minorities or these people who come from these places with different skills be allowed to actually express themselves and be part of the labor force?
Yeah, I mean, like, most of the things we talked about, in my head, it's more like they need radical change, which means, like, radical change to me, it's like change of constitution. Because, or change of, like, so many laws that has been made so many years ago, that which happened before the migration wave, before any war, before any, so democracy needs to be updated. And that's a thing I think should happen. But, sorry, I forgot your second question.
No, it's just the radical issue with regards to...
But I think, like, for example, in June, in June, basically, the Bundestag came up with this new law that they're gonna make it much more easier for skilled workers to come to Germany, and the conditions gonna be much easier now. Which means that before it was like really high-ranked professional managers, they could come and get this blaue Karte. But now it's like, for example, teachers can come, like so many other like professions can also enter in Germany, and it's much easier. For example, they came up with another card, opportunity card, which means like they can just search for a job while they are here. So, yeah, this definitely makes it so much easier. But in my head, again, I think the whole narrative needs to be changed.
Can I ask this question?
Yeah.
These teachers and professionals you talked about, Do they happen to be from the EU and OECD countries that they've opened the door to?
No, this strategy which gonna come, like this law gonna come into force, I think, from March 2024, and it's gonna be for also like the skilled workers outside EU. Yeah, all. So that's for example like something promising to me at least. Yeah.
Let me make this final question and we can have this conversation. Is there, because you are here, is there an exoticism of you, the Moroccan artist, for being Moroccan, such that you, if you were to say, I'm not just Moroccan, I'm an artist who is a world citizen, and my art should represent so. Is there a force that stops you from doing so? As you described, you're from Syria, so forever talk about the Syrian trouble, instead of saying, no, I've left that part of the world, I would like to explore a new form of art. And is there a force that stops you from doing such a thing?
Yeah, it's. I will take to answer the question. I will get back to my experience where when I was living in Morocco and touring with my performance work internationally. Yeah, I always somehow was kind of sometimes shocked about reading the programs, about how the work was kind of adapted to the local context, and in many cases it was like this idea of this identity, talk about this subject, even if my work was absolutely not talking about this. So I start to question why. Why this confirmation, and then start to talk to curator and institution, and they always come to the idea of the audience. Okay, the audience need that. I mean, the audience is who is asking for that. We have to answer to this need, you know. And that was like, from 2002 to 2000, I would say, 10, and then there is artists from this area that they start really, these questions start to bother them, you know. As not only me, but with many other artists from Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Lebanon, we really start to talk about this problem, because it's make you discriminated from a simple question of universalism, you know. Your opinion, it's still kind of not in this shape of universalism, you know. We still like, okay, an artist coming from this area talking, either like showing his identity or talking about the problems of these places. And the fact that we start to be a huge community talking about that creates a certain reaction from international institutions. They start really to think how to put the right context. Okay, the curators start to change. I mean, we see here in Berlin, it's when it's come to international art, we are very like careful and trying to have a very specific subject, but it's still in the audience. The idea, it's still present, I would say, you know. It's still, I work a lot in France, and I am still facing it. That's in the question of audience, about their idea and their image, constructed image. So it's the fact that we start to bring this, and then the solution that I had is, okay, let's bring that in my work. I don't want anymore that it's just a feeling. I don't know. We can show one of the photo here. So, and they start to really like take this as a crisis, and it's not just, it's kind of global. And let's work on it artistically. And I'm not the only one doing that. There is many. So I start to question the Eurocentricity, the geopolitic connected to the art, and also the idea of how we are practicing, like in Morocco, there is a self-exotism also. If you go to Marrakesh, it's so obvious because there is a need of it. That's what brings tourists, that's what make people come into this place to feel like that they are in this exotic era. And today with the earthquake, we are paying very, very, like, it's crazy that the fact in the mountain we keep people building house in the traditional way. And today this house they felt on these people, there is over 2,000 dead person there. So it's like, yeah, so how also the self. So I start to question, in my work, okay, this idea of Eurocentricity, and I start just to put myself in the position of an artist from France or from West, coming to work in Morocco. So what's he gonna do? So he's always like revealing certain stuff in my identity. So I did the same. I say, okay, I'm gonna be the Moroccan artist working about Europe. So I made a couple of work about like, at that moment, 2015, it was like the migration crisis in Europe, the fact that Europe start to like, being in, put in question, I mean, with the Brexit, with the different extreme right movement countries. So that was for me the solution. And then in my performance also like start to be present. So today I feel there is like a change in the curatorial field, like the one who are selecting work. They are kind of aware of that. But the funny part is like when you have curator coming from the south and themselves finally practicing that. So you see that the system is kind of like renewing himself, founding. If you go to in the university field, in the academic field, today in Morocco I meet a lot of anthropologue, researcher, that they are, they are from they are Moroccan, and then they are also like answering what the universities in United States mainly are aspecting. Like they are coming to talk about the black movements in Morocco, which is like for trying to find solution of American problem in the African context. And I found that really like smart and strange at the same time. It's a way to answer this need, but at the same time it's just like prolonging the idea of Eurocentricity, you know. It's a quite complex field, and today I took the choice to really like play with it in my work. I mean, not just like being the guy feeling that in the side, bring it in the stage. And that's what create like, okay, curator, they start, okay, that's interesting, let's talk about it, let's exchange why there is this, all these artists are having this common feel, and why they, and it start to create like, different, you have many spaces here in Berlin are really like working in that, but it's much more complex when you found the curator is, I don't know, from South America or from Africa, or like, it's much more difficult now to little bit escape the discussion.
Eli, do you have something to add here perhaps? The idea that the African issue being transported to Morocco, because it's international or transnational, as they say.
Yeah, I think like, we all know kind of like about that in different fields, and like when also thinking about like environmental issues, why now, for example, Global South is paying more prices of like environmental, and why that's happening, because the companies, it's the cheap labor there, it's easier to have the branches there. So, and like basically neo-exploitating, like again, in a very new, implicit way. But
isn't that ironic as well when we speak of this international rights, or Germany as an example, when we talked about where it's now guaranteed that climate change is going to dispossess a lot of the global south, and the global south having no place to live is going to continue migrating to this part of the world. So the issue of who you are and what you are notwithstanding, the skills you have, the papers you need will be a bigger question and not a smaller one. As in, the legislation cannot keep up with the change that's happening, that is. So what gives then, if the world is going to continue degrading the way it is, agriculture being impossible means that a lot of Africans are going to go through the Sahara Desert, then this damned Mediterranean Ocean, only to sink and those who survive will have to live with the stigma of being unwanted in this part of the world, when clearly that has happened. What can we change about this? What is it that could be done? Not just them who make the laws, but amongst us who feel powerless and who feel dispossessed in a way when it comes to our rights. Because the demonstrations and everything else costs so much time. What effective strategies are there?
I mean, like, this is honestly, like, nowadays being also active in the Jina revolution happening in Iran. Honestly, like, this is the dilemma that I am personally, honestly, like, experiencing, and I don't have a really clear answer for that. But yeah, I sometimes I think with myself, does just making demonstrations, going on the street, yes, I think when the population of the whole world was less, and then 2,000 people, they were on the street, that was something. That was something like being seen. But nowadays, I think like we need different form of political practice. Like, for example, like demos, to me, it needs so much resources that you probably, as diasporic activists, you don't have much. And then you just organize that, and then you tire yourself, and then it's kind of like doing the routine, but then nothing is happening. To be honest, I'm really struggling to answer this question. We need something radical. We need, I don't know.
How does the radical manifest itself? Because demos we've done plenty of for the past decade, and not much seems to have changed. How do you make it? The way I would describe it is, how do you make it? How do you let it be known to the majority that it's in their best interest to sort this out way before this trickle becomes a flood and becomes unsustainable? Because just having fences and fortresses is not going to solve it. It's not enough that these people are stigmatized here, but they are going to be the backbone of this workforce for many years to come. And at the same time, trying to get that message across has been the most difficult, if not impossible, message to have, because now the migration issue since 2015 to today, we are told, is why the right wing has had quite a fit and rising. So, yeah.
I mean,
it's a loop, actually. The fact that, okay, the West is exploiting the South, still resourcing, and then people don't have enough stuff, and then they are coming to the West to survive, and then we don't want them. I think the work have to done in both sides, here intellectually and in the global South, with effective economic solutions, I would say. The fact to still support non-democratic country in Africa, and military power, and it's kind of like very paradoxal and corrupted relationship between the global South and the West, and sometimes even the countries in the global South also, they are still like, I know it's in Morocco, like, for example, our elites, they grow up totally in distance with reality. They study in the French school, the American school, or the Belgium school. They go from the school to the house with the driver. They never interfere with people. And then they get their degree, and then at that moment they go to the country that they study in their system. And at that moment, we start to tell them, hey, you are Moroccan. And they come back with the big identity problem, and they try to solve it in culture and art, for example. But then it's just creates a more confusion. We create more dependence to the colonizer, which is, in our case, the French and the Spanish. Because our elites, intellectually, they think in this way, and they still like don't know what is the reality really, because they just get discriminated in the moment when they went to study in Spain or in French, and they come back with the idea of solving this problem by investing in culture. At the end, they just import what they saw. It's the problem of the model. In the moment when the model is still like imported, you don't consider the local realities. And I think in political way, Europe, they still want that. That's how people get still opportunity to explore to exploit the African countries, for example. So I think, yeah, it's a double work to do. It's a work in these places and in these countries to change this. And I don't think so that's go just to be popular revolution, because there was many happening. The Arab Spring recently just made this country, like after 10 years, worse and worse. So I think today that we have enough tool to create dynamic where really I don't know, I am hopeless person, so I saw that I'm still working in Morocco for that. That's why I am motivated to keep my work there and not like I'm fully living here in Berlin, because I have this fresh feeling of something is going on there, and for sure with a lot of difficulties and a lot of struggle between generations. But yeah, I believe that today some things start to come from this struggle, and we experience it with like our political relation today with France are really, really bad, because we are investing a lot in Africa, and French governments, they don't like that so much. So yeah, I think it's true dynamic, true like collective dynamic, that it can create this equal feeling of being together in this world and living together and creating like more win-win relation than how it is today. Because the problem is that, yeah, people today are dying because they just want to keep this exotic vision of what is, for example, Morocco, because there is this need of, yeah, so, and then, yeah, that's kind of effective. It's not just conceptual, it's true example in front of us today. Yeah, so I do believe that there is double effort to make. Local effort in the global south and intellectual effort here to get out of the comfort.
You just wanted to add something very short. I think like also I don't really find, I mean, I'm talking about global south, global now, north and stuff like that, but like I think it's not anymore, I don't think so it's gonna be a very practical approach. Because like as much as we are talking about global south and global north is just like we are most of the time in this kind of like reactionary kind of behavior to each other. We like us, another, and then others, and outsiders, insiders. So it's kind of like a reproduction. I'm not saying the reality is not like that. I'm just saying like how we want to change if we want to stick to this narrative. For example, like they're like kind of like modern ideas, like why the global south and all the revolutionary movements and resistance, they need to be linked together. And this doesn't mean that they're fighting global north, but it's because like they are fighting for same reason, something like that. So that's, I think like that's something should happen somehow. How these movements can be connected, how they can organize, and also from the start of like the General Revolution, for example, I can say that we also got resources from different institutions in Germany. We got funded, we got Spende, we got an office to sit there and work because we didn't have anything. So I think sharing the resources is something that it's also something.
But can we change this system that you talked about, which is work to be done on both sides, as you said, global south and north, right? But it seems to be much of the global south works on a model that the north told it to do. Our economic systems, the exploitative nature of them, our artistic and societal model, which is often criticized for not being independent enough and not embracing individuality. There is a fight within that global south as to let's follow what they did to prosper versus let's do what our ancestors told us. And there is a fight, and not to mention the lack of what I call accountability in all broad spectrums. So this is, my problem has always been this, which is Africa right now has gone through a system where much of West Africa now, we are told, is letting the French go, which is why these military juntas are coming into office. We're not new to these military juntas or these coup d'etats. the 60s and the 70s were full of these coup d'etats where no functioning African government stated that put a single good to the public. I am now being told to understand that no, with this new coup d'etats, things are going to change. Yeah? These are people, of course, rightly deposing people who are incredibly corrupt. I'll give them that. But they also haven't gotten used to the idea of the public having a say. So colonel somebody and captain somebody gets into power, see you later, 30 years later when he's dead, he's going to have somebody else coming to him. I'm not saying that both of those to work. It seems this part of the world, all it has done is to dictate terms, and we've never had a chance to dictate one either. Yeah. It's adversarial as well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. In the African historical context is exactly what you are saying. But sometimes, like, if I took the example of the Arab world, which like fully like non-democratic system mainly, you have a new kind of domination, like, which is like exactly like rebuilding the same example of the relation between the West and the East. It's between the Middle East and the North Africa. You know, we have lots of influence from the Middle East in our political system in Morocco, in Algeria, in Tunisia, and Egypt, mainly Egypt. Yeah. And the fact that they have enough economical tool today and power, they are doing the same thing. So I think domination is part of the human being, you know, historically. So it's not. So that's why I came to the idea that you said about we should not anymore consider the North and the South in this bipolarity relation. So in our case, it's just the East and the West. They are doing the same, and they are influencing. They are putting all the money. I mean, the way how I experience, for example, how Morocco became kind of conservative country through this influence of religious movement. It's come from Arabia Saudi, and they live it physically. I remember playing football in the street. We had people coming to us, like talking to us about God and religion and so on, and we are not doing well and so on. They were kind of like, very present and with a really putting the money and exporting their ideology. So I think it's mainly about education, how to put the question of domination and West and East in our in our education system. That's what I think gonna motivate people to change, think with their work, not just being politically engaged to change things. I think a society, and China, it's a big example, and I really like insist in the question of education, and it's a really strong key. So how to push government to be able to change the education system, that's kind of really like difficult task for sure. It's true, I don't have an answer. I don't think so that anyone gonna allow himself to leave his comforts and that's where it creates this world which is completely not injustice. So that's the complexity. I know there is this discussion about the franc CFA, the African money, which is like printed in France. So for France, if these things doesn't exist, they gonna have a lot of trouble with the German to control Europe. Yeah. They know that if this is what allowed them to keep with the German, the same kind of like position in terms of European domination. So it's and they are doing everything to keep this monetary domination. Yeah.
So the extraction will inevitably continue so long as accountability is stated at some point. I mean, I am hopeful that these juntas understand what's going on to a sense that they realize that they are a defense force of a country and not its soul, and therefore they give back power in a accountable, electable matter, but I wouldn't hold my breath. And as for the Middle East and its revolutions, the Arab Spring was an incredible aspiration of people that was curtailed. 10 years later, not a single one has survived to tell a story. So, yeah, that's a very depressing point to end this conversation, but
Maybe I will show one work connected to that a little bit. Yeah. It's maybe we show the video Untitled 14 kilometer. It's just a short. It's a 1 minute video.
Yeah. Before we show it, Eli has something.
So
you have something
to give a context, Untitled 14 kilometer. It's a performance which happened in imaginary museum called the Imaginary Museum of North Africa, Middle East for Contemporary Art. And we are exposing in this museum a poet from the 12th century from Andalusia during the Arab occupation of Spain. And yeah, we are combining the image of refugees with the warrior of the 12th century. Okay, so maybe we show just this.
عيد نظرا يصاحي عيد نظرا يصاحي طلع الفجر
Thank you very much, Youness. Okay, would you like to add something?
I just wanted to say at the end, because I think we kind of like got into this very, very pessimistic point of view, but I think like it's gonna be revolution, and revolution that's something I really hope that's gonna happen, which is gonna happen. The radical change of the whole system, the radical change of so many concepts, police, borders, institutions, no. It's a lot of job, but that's what revolution does, and I believe in that. So I just wanted to finish like this somehow.
Excellent. Revolution and revolution until shit gets sorted. I would like to thank my guests Youness Atbane and Eli Kostahani. We have a wonderful guest for you. I am told this gentleman, Shadi Ali, had a rock band named Ginny, and he is now an individual artist touring Europe. He has something wonderful to show to us, and without further ado, I would like to end this conversation here and allow Shadi to show us his magnificence. Yeah, Shadi, please show up.
Good evening. My name is Shadi. I'm a singer from Syria, touring now. Thank you, Civic City, for introducing me to this cozy place. Thank you for today. So I'm gonna sing some, I can say, Arabic bel canto songs, if I may borrow the expression, the term from the opera, so you can enjoy the music and you know that it's about love. You can just add your words on it and it will work as if it's in an opera. All right. كيف حالون كيف حبايبنا عم يبعدوا البعد متعبنا عم يبعدوا البعد متعبنا بيت قريب حي بهالحي ولنا سن منمشي وما قربنا وكيفون حبايبنا انتو يا قلب الليل غفلانين نحن عباب الليل سهرانين انتو يا قلب الليل غفلانين نحن عباب الليل والريح عم بتسوق ملت الشرين والهوا شرد مراكبنا كيف حبايبنا كيف حلوة ويعني يا لها ودنيا سحر بحالها كلمة سر بقلب الفجر وطل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقالها يا بحلوة ويعني يا لها ودنيا سحر بحالها كلمة سر بقلب الفجر وطل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقال كلمة وكانت الحلواي دل علي خيال نجم صبحي مضواي طل الفجر وقال كلمة وكانت الحلواي دل علي خيال نجم صبحي مضواي وعرواسي الجبال يا الغيمة عم تشهد الحكاية لمحت خلف الشال بسمة وجمدت فوق الجبال حلوة ويا نيالها دنيا سحر بحالها كلمة سر بقلب الفجر وطل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقالها وطل الفجر وقالها يابا حلوة ويا نيالها دنيا السحر بحالها كلمة سر بقلب الفجر وطل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقالها طل الفجر وقالها يا بطل الفجر وقالها. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. An original, also like similar to traditional songs there, but it's a new one. Love, love. You just add your syllables.
يا بلالا ولالا يا بلالا يا جمال الحلو يا جمالا يا بلالا ولالا يا بلالا يا جمال الحلو يا دلالا حوريات الجنة غاروا من بسمتها جنة حاروا حوريات الجنة غاروا من بسمتها جنة حاروا عالشفايف عم بيقولوا بالياقوت ومخبي لولو عالشفايف عم بيقولوا بالياقوت ومخبي لولو من شعرها بيتمنوا طولو والحلوة ولا على بالها ويا بلالا ولالا ويا بلالا يا جمال الحلو يا جمالها ويا بلالا ولالا ويا بلالا يا جمال الحلو ويا دلالا عرشك يوم وعالي تحمي هرموش هون بالي والتابوت دمع شكالي إنه الحلوة نعسانا يا بلا ولا يا بلا جمال الحلوة وياه يا بلا ولا يا بلا يا جمال الحلوة ويا جمال يا بلا ولا يا جمال الحلوة ويا جمال يا بلا يا جمال الحلوة وياه دلال
Thank you. Okay, I think last one will do the Egyptian one that you were singing with me, and you will sing. Please sing with me. Yeah. Yeah. This is Dalida. كلمة حلوة وكلمتين حلوة يا بلدي غنوة حلوة وغنوتين حلوة يا بلدي أملي دايما كان يا بلدي إني أرجع لك يا بلدي وأفضل دايما جنبك على طول ذكريات كل اللي فات فاكرة يا بلدي قلبي مليان بحكايات فاكرة يا بلدي أول حب كان في بلدي مش ممكن ننساه يا بلدي فين أيام زمان قبل الوداع كنا منقول إن الفراق ده مستحيل كل دمعة على الخدين كانت بتسيل مليانة بأمل إن احنا نبقى موجودين في بحر الحب على الشطين كلمة حلوة وكلمتين حلوة يا بلدي غنوة حلوة وغنوتين قمر يا بلدي فين حبيب القلب يا بلدي كان بعيد عني يا بلدي كل ما بغني وفكر فيه حلوة يا بلدي قمر يا بلدي Thank you. I don't know why I want to sing this French one. It's from a musical, a rock opera called Notre-Dame de Paris, and it's one of the songs that I learned how to sing by singing it, just simply. And it's go like this. Qui là-haut s'allume sur les toits de Paris, voir comme un homme peut souffrir d'amour belle, astre solitaire qui meurt quand vient le jour à temps, monter vers toi le chant de la terre, entend le cri d'un homme qui a mal, pour qui un million d'étoiles ne valent pas les yeux de celle qu'il aime d'un amour mortel. Moon, please don't disappear before you have time to hear. Just hear how cries the heart of the human beast. Please hear the cry, Quasimodo cries. He cries, for his heart is full, his voice over mountains flies so high that I know it flies to you. Moon, see how this man aspires to join his poor voice with them. Qui là-haut s'allume pour éclairer ma plume, voir comme un homme peut souffrir d'amour. Thank you. To me, that's. Thank you again, Civic City, for inviting me here. Sorry I couldn't do more, but I felt this is the one I want to finish with. Thank you so much for listening and for having me here. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Right. We are very thankful to those of you who showed up to see this. We are incredibly kind, very taken by Youness being here after all what's happened in Morocco to make it to our conversation. To our dearly departed friend Elahi, we also be very thankful. We will have the last and final show happening in TAC, in the rooftop, if it's not go down all to hell. But more importantly, we will have ourselves a politician, part of the Die Linke, Frau Katalin Genneborg is going to join us. I have known Frau Katalin Genneborg because she was in a conversation that we organized in the old garden project that I run with other people, which some of the guests know here. In that time, she was part of Mitglied Köpenick, which is she was a member of Köpenick for the Berlin Senate, and she still is. And the last time we had the conversation, we addressed the housing issue, the discrimination issue in a very cold greenhouse in the middle of February. So we're going to be very delighted to have Frau Katalin Genneborg as our guest, and Sulafa Hijazi, who is a wonderful, wonderful, talented artist. And this will be the last conversation we will have, followed by a musical guest. Yeah? Yes, and this is Karam, for anybody who doesn't know him. He's the co-producer of this project. Where's the white dude? This dude. This dude runs ACUD Machtnoi. This is Youness.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, and Hossam is sitting there making jokes, obviously. But yeah, this has been a wonderful collaboration and a journey of learning for me as to how to produce these shows. And Karam?
And yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful for all the conversations that we have had here, for the gorgeous music, which actually is designed to make us forget these awful conversations that we have, because there has to be beauty in the world. And on that note, our guest in the next episode is Vanessa Chartrand-Rodrigue. She is a cellist and electronic player. She's also a director. Dirigentin? Director.
Boss.
Well, yeah, Dirigentin of orchestras. A director of orchestras and a brilliant woman. We discovered her in Black Eurydice, which is a play we had on, and she made a beautiful piece of music. I very much look forward to that conversation. I very much thank Vitewi for taking all these crazy ideas we had and actually turning them into coherent conversations, sometimes. And Youness for having us here, and his support, and yeah, and everything. And for running the ACUD and keeping this place alive. Bravo. I mean, it means a lot to me. I started out here like 25 years ago.
I didn't know that, but that's good to know.
I wasn't here yet.
Yeah, my first theater festival was at the ACUD. But enough about me. I mean, all I'm here to say is next week, Vanessa Chartrand-Rodrigue, Katalin October, sorry. It's also quick to me these days.
Yes.
It's like next month. Yeah. Sulafa Hijazi from Syria, visual interdisciplinary artist, director, filmmaker, theoretician, all kinds of things. And Katalin Genneborg from Die Linke, member of the Berlin Parliament, about use, future, and artificial intelligence. And maybe we'll have some AI in there as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you, Vitewi.
And thank you all for coming here. Thank you for our wonderful Shadi Ali for transporting us. It seems to me that sometimes we have way more talented musical artists than I consider our conversations to be, which is saying something. So to whoever curated it, for Karam, getting these people and bringing them here to share with us this wonderful music, we're incredibly grateful. And we hope to see you in October for the last of the show. And we will expand this format, hopefully, as we get more money, obviously.
So funders, if you're watching this, we want funds.
Yes. We want more funds to get more conversations going and more musical artists like Shadi showing up to
and we want to make a festival out of it, right?
Yes. We definitely want a big, massive festival in our favor going on.
A music festival.
A music and conversation and art and all kinds of this festival.
I think I have an idea.
Yeah.
We can do a choir.
Yeah. So he's turned on. All in all, thank you very much for those of you who have been here. We're very grateful, and we'll see you for the last show of in Tag Theater, Aufbauhaus, near Moritzplatz, possibly October 1st, possibly on the rooftop if we get our cards right. Yeah? It's confirmed. Excellent. This is going to be wonderful. Rooftop conversations with two prominent ladies and a musical artist coming to you on October 1, courtesy of Civic City Part 5. Thank you very much. Have a good one.